What I'm going to talk about today is a slightly different perspective about digital transformation. I will really not talk too much about data, big data. I will not talk a lot about digital technology, but I will talk about a digital transformation which is driven by using design thinking or human-centered design by leading digital transformation from the front end. And so you will hopefully understand what I mean as I go along. I am aware that I'm probably going to provide a slightly controversial perspective today, but I'm hoping that this is going to spark some lively discussion in the Q&A session and hopefully also over lunch. Also, I'm not sharing my research as such, but I'm mostly sharing the learnings, what I have learned in doing my research, with the hope that these can have practical and useful implications for people in the room who are either embarking on digital transformation or are at the beginning of their journey. So I think it's, next please, this doesn't work? No. That's why I'm not talking about technology today. Because technology fails. Okay, so I think this is a fair representation of what a lot of traditional businesses are experiencing right now when it comes to digital transformation. Everybody's talking about it. Not necessarily everybody knows what they are talking about it. The wave is coming, the change is coming, and of course, depending on how we are dealing with the change, we can be wiped out or we can actually be able to weather the storm. Now, people have shared today some of the challenges or the pitfalls that are connected to digital transformation. Let me share some of the pitfalls that I have witnessed or I have learned in talking with design consulting firms that are the main empirical setting of my research. Next, please. Okay, the first pitfall is what we call the lift and shift. And it basically, due to the fact that digital transformation, let's face it, has been hijacked by IT people. And often CTOs, what they do is they think that by taking a database, lifting it and shifting it into the cloud means doing digital transformation. Another one, a very good one, is the app trap. So they think that just by having an app, an application, that means becoming digital. And I can go on and on forever. Next, please. Okay, this is another interesting challenge, which is honestly quite common in a lot of big organizations, and Imperial is one of them. We like our silos. We like to stay in our lanes, and we like to blame other people, right? And so nobody takes responsibility, and we lose sight of what's really important, okay? It's really helping the business being successful. And so, of course, depending on how companies are able to face and deal with these and many other challenges, again, they can be wiped out, or they not only can weather the storm, but they can ride the wave. And that's when design thinking comes nicely to the rescue, as I like to say, because design thinking can give companies the right tools and ultimately the right mindset, the right culture to really maximize the potential of data-driven and digital transformation. Now, I could jump right in and tell you what it is. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories. I like to tell stories, and I think stories are very important because we can relate to them. And I'm going to tell you a couple of innovation stories. In my initial slide, digital was under bracket because I'm actually talking about a couple of innovation stories. One is non-really digital, the other one is more digital. So let's go back in time. Let's go back to the early noughties, so 2002, 2003. Bank of America, we're all familiar with Bank of America. They realized that they were missing out on some segments of the market. So there were some underserved segments of the market. They had no customers there. And mostly, okay, so the exercise that they did was, we are not really reaching people who are struggling from a financial perspective. mostly people who live paycheck by paycheck. If we put ourselves into their shoes, these people have to face worries like not being able to pay their bills, not being able to pay their rent, being evicted. The last thing they are able to do is to save some money. And so, of course, Bank of America said, how can we help people who are struggling financially save money? And so they hired IDEO with the hope of bringing to the banking industry some novel solutions. Now, the phase of the banking industry is really more innovative than in the past. In the past, it was a very, very traditional and conservative industry, as you know. And so what IDEO did, they embedded themselves into the Bank of America team, but they started talking to real people. They started talking to different households, families, individuals, not only people who were struggling financially, but also people who were good at saving money, in order to see what can we learn from these people. What are their needs? What are their concerns? What are their fears? What drives them? Okay. And as they synthesized the results of their small scale, small data, no big data research, what they found out is that, interestingly enough, often women oversaw the finances in the households. Second, some mothers especially had this interesting behavior, this interesting habit. The habit of rounding up the number in their checkbooks. Remember, it was early noughties, mobile banking as we know it right now didn't exist, so women were still using checkbooks. And this simple behavior made addition easier, but also gave a small buffer in spending. And so the IDEO team said, that's a very interesting behavior. How can we come up with a solution, with a service, that will actually induce more people to engage in this type of behaviors? Because by doing that, they will probably start saving money without even knowing that they are saving money. And that's when they developed and introduced Keep the Change. So Keep the Change is a savings account that works exactly like these mothers were doing, very intuitively. Basically, by using your debit card, you can buy different things, and then Bank of America rounds these up to the nearest dollar amount, and then transfers this money to a saving account. So by doing that, you're saving money without even knowing about it. You might think this is like something really small. No AI, no machine learning, maybe something that hasn't had any impact out there. Well, actually, numbers are completely different. Because after its launch in September 2005, the program attracted 2 million customers. 75% of them were new customers, customers that otherwise Bank of America would not have reached. Okay? The product, or actually it's a service, it's still there after so many years, and 99% of customers and new customers sign up to this service. Quite shocking, huh? Second story, Public Health England. Public Health England, we all know what it is, but I don't know if everybody knows that they are taking a more proactive role in providing services to people, health services to people. Of course, we are all aware of this big crisis in terms of mental health. You know, over 15% of people in London have mental health issues, and I'm not talking about serious personality disorders, I'm talking about anxiety, I'm talking about insomnia, I'm talking about stress. What's really shocking is that on average, people who contact the NHS, they have to wait 18 weeks by the time they are seen by somebody. This is shocking, and of course, you know, we need to deal with this crisis. And Public Health England, they knew that they needed to do something using digital technologies, because they needed a solution that was quick, but that could be effective at scale. And so they hired LiveWork. So LiveWork is more of a service design company, so very specialized in developing new services. And you might probably guess what they did. Well, they started talking to people. They started talking to people experiencing mental health issues. They talked to women, they talked to men, and they talked to a woman that was experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder after being robbed. But she was an easy one because she was proactively seeking help. And then they talked to Martin, a guy who had recently divorced, so he was going through a very stressful period of time. He was experiencing a lot of work-related stress. Forgive me, but being a guy, he was not being active and proactive in seeking help. And so people said, at Live Work, said, okay, what we found out is that often people feel ashamed of talking about their mental health issues, and so they're not being proactive, they're not seeking help. So if we want to give them support, we cannot expect them to come and contact us, and even if they do, they have 18 weeks. They have to wait 18 weeks. And so they said, we need to meet them where they are. And so the running hypothesis was, well, what if, while they are on social media, while they are scrolling through their social media, because we are online all the time, what if there was a portal that they could enter and could lead them to resources, digital resources that could actually be of help? And so they piloted a small trial study, which is now being scaled across England. And I would like to show you a video that will explain to you what this is about, hoping that the video will work.
Meet Martin. He's 38 years old and lives in London. He enjoys mountain biking, supports Arsenal, and works in construction. Unfortunately, Martin has problems sleeping and has suffered for many years. After work, his body is tired, but his mind is constantly racing. His work is stressful because he's responsible for the safety of his co-workers, and smoking has become his relief from work. A lack of sleep also makes him short-tempered, and every weekend he's physically drained, spending much of his day in bed. Martin keeps his problems to himself as he's not keen on doctors, but he doesn't know how to break this vicious cycle. Late one night, unable to sleep, he surfs the web and information about sleeplessness pops up. This has been specifically aimed at Martin based on his demographic information and social media and browsing history. He clicks the link and answers some simple questions, which are all based on NHS clinical assessments. If any serious medical problems are raised, the system automatically connects Martin to the right NHS service. Information appears about some tools Martin might find useful, and he decides to download an app to help people sleep, which is evidence-based and clinically approved. The app makes a difference. For the first time in years, he's able to get enough sleep to tackle his day. He's pleased he didn't have to talk to a doctor and has helped himself on his own terms. Martin is just one person we will help. This first, simple version of the service is being tested with people who have sleep problems. But in time, we will help many more Londoners currently suffering alone with common mental health issues. Teams of experts are working together to create a range of digital tools. Some are brand new and some already exist, that help us all look after our mental well-being. For example, we're testing online forums with clinically approved safe moderation. People will be able to speak to other Londoners who might be facing similar issues. Data and feedback from people who use the service will be collated to make continuous improvements. That means it will be developed in a safe and cost-effective way and will always work well for the people who use it. This is a world first. Nowhere else have so many people and organisations come together to support such an ambitious digital mental health project. We'll create a 24/7 digital service that helps us look after our mental well-being. Imagine a city where no one is left to suffer alone. Be part of the change.
So, two stories, two very simple and probably relatable stories. What's common among these two stories? It's definitely an approach, a focus that is very human-centered, which is fundamentally different from being customer-centric. It's human-centered versus business-centric one that really starts with understanding the needs, the behaviors, the pain points, the concerns, the fears, the aspirations of human beings. And these human beings can be employees, it could be customers, it could be clients, human beings that make up organizations and societies, and use uses the needs of these people to shape the direction of the business. This is, in a nutshell, design thinking on human-centered design. At the heart of it, we have a methodology or a process that we call the double diamond that starts by a general problem solving or a general, problem statement, and then really spends time exploring the problem and exploring the root causes of the problem, just like IDEO and LiveWork did. The main aim during the initial research was to really identify the main insights of why people were not saving money or why they were saving money and why people were not seeking help when it came to mental health issues. And so these root causes of the problem are really what then drive the idea generation that can really help people develop products and services that really address fundamental, important human needs. And so by doing that, we can develop innovations that are meaningful for people. What are the main principles? Definitely, design thinking, it's a very human-centered. So empathy is one of the main pinnacles of design thinking. It's an ability we all have, unless we are psychopaths or sociopaths. But unfortunately, we either lose it over time or we don't practice it enough. But it's an amazing leadership skill that is important to have. Second part is that it's really an agile and cross-functional way of developing innovation. And I'm not talking about here agile with a capital A, which is a methodology with certain tools and methods for software development. We are talking about a very agile way, an iterative way of developing new ideas and testing them, prototyping and testing them in order to understand whether they need refinement or not, and which is a great segue into the other principle. It really uses failure as an opportunity to learn and to improve, something that especially the big organizations are really not, let's say, comfortable with. Nobody is comfortable with failure, but it's about reframing failure as an opportunity to learn and then to innovate. So where is technology in all this? Well, of course, human beings and the focus of human beings is important, but it's also important that technology is used at the service of a human being in order to devise solutions, digital products or services that can reach people and can provide meaningful innovations, of course, without losing sight of the business viability, because fundamentally as organizations, we want to make money. In doing so, design thinking creates value, but the interesting thing is that it creates value not only for customers, but also for the whole ecosystem of stakeholders. And about value, I want to open a separate note, because we are talking about not only dollar value or pound value, and there are a couple of management consulting driven reports out there who basically provide some evidence about how investing in design and design thinking actually pays off big time in terms of dollar value. But I'm also talking about something a bit deeper than that. We're talking about the business value of design, because money is something that we can count, but design thinking or design-driven digital transformation can actually transform your organization. Otherwise, if we are just lifting and shifting, we're just putting lipstick on a pig. We want to fundamentally redesign the pig, or maybe not have a pig anymore. So, yes. So, this is only the tip of the iceberg, what we can actually count. But a design-driven digital transformation can get down to conversations, behaviors, and ultimately, as I mentioned previously, it's about the mindset. It's about really the cultural transformation and the cultural revolution that design thinking can help organization drive. Examples of companies who have embarked in this journey. Shell, actually, I am currently doing a research project with Shell, and they have created a few innovation hubs inside the IT department, which are going progressively to change the way, the entire IT department is working. And of course, design thinking is one of the cornerstones of these innovation hubs. We also have IBM, IBM has been one of the, let's say, one of the pioneers in using design thinking to lead digital reinvention. And SAP, they've invested so much, they have created this company called App House that actually helps their clients embark in a design-driven digital transformation. But this is only the tip of the iceberg, because there are a lot of organizations who have already started with different level of maturity. And then you might wonder, well, why are you talking about this? Or how can you help us? Okay? Because we can actually help us. Imperial can help us because, can help you. Because we have been at the forefront of design in business and for business for quite a long time, mostly investing in introducing design thinking in our MBA courses, MSc courses. But more recently, we asked ourselves, how can we actually bridge academia and industry together? How can we work together in such a way that we can really benefit from each other? And so we have very recently launched a new initiative called the Imperial Business Design Studio. It's not a lab, it's not a hub, it's not a center, it's a studio, because what we would like to achieve is to create a truly collaborative culture where knowledge is co-created by academics and practitioners from the industry. Right now we are in a startup mode, so we are small, but we want to grow, we're quite ambitious. And so we seek to really conduct cutting-edge research. We are already doing some of that. And of course, we will disseminate knowledge through the usual channels. But most importantly, we want to disseminate knowledge in a way that can be useful for companies and industries. So by really delivering bespoke training, so upskilling employees, or even help them build new capabilities, and also help them embark in the systemic change, which is really necessary in order to drive successfully digital transformation and to exploit the potential that digital transformation can really have. So if you're interested, come and talk to me over lunch. Thank you.
Great, so we'll have some questions. First, a question from me, I think, before we go on to these. So Ileana, in terms of design thinking and design-driven innovation, what would be the first step for an organization beyond talking to you and the studio? What would be the first step for them to do to start becoming more design-driven in their work?
Understanding what it is. Because getting into a room with a bunch of post-it notes is not design thinking, but unfortunately a lot of people think that is what it's about. Okay? So really understanding what it is. And then I would say once they decide to then embark in this journey, start by training people on this methodology. But as I said, that is only the beginning, because one of the questions is, how do you create a design-driven culture? It can be done. Companies like Samsung have turned themselves from being engineering-driven to very design-driven. Pepsi, for example, is on their journey of becoming design-driven. So it can be done. It goes back to that systemic change that I was mentioning before. It's not about training people, but it's about changing the processes, changing the structure of the organization, changing the reward and punishment system in such a way that the KPIs are aligned with the behaviors that you want to create into an organization. And it's also about changing the leadership. It all has to be connected.
So should design be based on data and user testing, or on the intuition of a lone designer?
The cliche of the lone designers, honestly, is dead. So design thinking really thrives and is really successful when people work in teams, cross-functional teams, and so that they can cover each other's blind spots. So of course it's based on empathetic research, mostly aimed at understanding needs and behaviors of people, and of course is based on prototyping and testing with real users. I really wanted to get to the first one.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for raising that question, because some of the things that we really want to investigate as part of the studio is really the ethical implication of data and of using data. I probably disagree with saying that most of the ethical violations have happened in companies that claim to practice design thinking, because for me, human desirability and the ethical implications are pretty much close to each other. So design thinking, when it's practiced properly, it has to really empathize and then develop something which is desirable for people. So of course, unethical behaviors are pretty much at odds with the main principles of design thinking.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's give a round of applause.